Hello! This is Mr. Axebane, and welcome to How to Play Sailwind, a beginner's guide for non-sailors. In this guide, I'll be covering missions and trade, basic sailing, getting unstuck, hunger, thirst, sleep, and a bit about the starting region, at least if you start in easy, and you really ought to if you don't know anything about real sailing. So, let's begin with missions and trade. Now, you do missions to get reputation, and you'll also earn some money. You can earn a lot more money with trade, but you can't do that until you have some reputation, plus you need the money to buy the trade goods in the first place. You'll want to look for the blue flag here that shows the anchor to find the mission office. So, at the start of the game, you will only have missions. When you try to use trade, it will tell you don't have enough reputation yet. So, to select a mission, you just open the mission log by left-clicking or pressing F. And then it has multiple pages. You can see there's 6 pages. On the first page is typically the highest paying missions, but be careful not to take anything that is far too heavy. The starting ship you have here on easy, known as the Dow, can hold up to 1,000 pounds or so. At the start, you will only be able to accept 2 missions. I already have some. That's why it tells me down at the bottom here, bottom right, that I don't have enough reputation. That's what it's going to tell you if you try to take a third mission at the start of the game. You'll only be able to accept 2. So you can select 2 missions, select the one you want, take a look at the weight here to make sure it's not too high. You can look at the price per mile. The highest ones should be on the first page. But the biggest thing is really the destination as well. For your very first destination, I highly, highly recommend Al-Nalim, which is north. You begin in Neverden. Another good option is Gold Rock City over here. And these are good for a couple of different reasons. The Al-Nalim is excellent because, as you can see, let me see if I can find a mission that goes to it. Al-Nalim is excellent because it is directly north. You will start with a compass and a map, and as you can see here in the mission office, they'll show you the map, so you don't have to bring your own map in the office to look at it. Gold Rock City is almost northeast exactly, just a little bit more east than that. But Gold Rock is also excellent because it is absolutely huge. It's relatively in the center of this region, and it's extremely huge, so it's a very good navigational aid. Getting to Gold Rock City is very easy. Plus, for this particular region, that's usually pretty favorable as far as the winds go. If these blue lines were the wind, it's not guaranteed to be this direction. However, in this region, the winds are usually fairly predictable, meaning they don't change that often. But they could be anything. They could be the opposite, of course. But generally, more often than not, they'll be somewhat northeast. Not exactly northeast, but pretty close to that. So Gold Rock is good for that as well. Anyway, you would select up to 2 missions, and after you've done so, cargo will be placed out here, and you can pick it up with F or left mouse button, and you would just load all of that. I've already done that in this case. Now, once you've done a few missions, it will take you about 4 deliveries or so, so maybe an hour and a half, I don't know, an hour to 2 hours maybe of playing the game, depending how well you do. You'll unlock trade, and then when you do that, whenever you select the trade booklet, you'll be able to have it only shows 1 at the bottom here, which is misleading for some reason. Makes it look like there's only 1 page, but there is actually multiple pages. There might just not be a lot of possible items at this particular location, but you can change pages at the bottom left. Anything that is grayed out, like this entire page here, it simply means that there are none for sale, as you can see on the right, at this particular port at this particular time. And in your trade booklet, it will always highlight the particular port you are currently in, right over here. You see, we are currently in Neverden. So to take a trade, and once again, you can't do this at the very start, but you'll be able to do it pretty early on. Just select a trade good that is not grayed out, meaning that there's at least one here for sale. For instance, the first one here on the first page is dates. It's a nice one actually because at the top right you'll see the size and weight is quite low. It's a small crate, only 4.5 pounds or so per crate, which is very, very low. So you don't have to worry about the weight that much. And then at the bottom right, we can see that I could buy one crate of dates for 37. I only have 65 alloc lines right now. I don't recall what you exactly start with. I've done just enough of the game in this save to unlock trading. They have up to 50 for you to purchase here. Of course, nobody's, you wouldn't even be able to fit that many on that. Well, you might be able to fit them on this small ship, but it's going to be pretty close, even though they're lightweight. Anyway, so you would select a good, select how many you want to buy, but even more important than that, of course, is the potential profit. And it's only a potential profit because there is an economic simulation even when the player's not getting involved. There are basically other sailors, other NPCs out there trading, and they're looking for the best trades too. So you may not make quite as much as you see here, but this trade book will show you on the left column, days ago, will tell you how old the information is. And it's not just the player that updates this, actually. When the NPCs trade, they also bring news of updated prices, luckily. So as you can see, nothing actually is any older than 3 days at the moment. So all this stuff's pretty fresh as far as information. We can see that if I were able to do trading, and I was starting here in Neverden, a great spot to take these dates would actually be, as you can see on the profit column here, 51. That's on the row for Gold Rock City. Also down here at the bottom, 39 for Alonk Academy, which is a bit challenging to find when you're new, but it's because it's very small. There's basically no land. It's pretty much just the academy. It's 39 per crate of potential profit. That's profit per crate if you sold it there right now, basically. Anyway, so that's how trade goods work. Keep in mind again, you do need to have upfront cash to be able to buy enough trade goods to really fill up your ship. So once you first unlock trade, like you will likely be doing trade, maybe a few crates, a couple of barrels, whatever you can afford of something that looks profitable to a destination that looks profitable. But you then can fill the rest of your ship with missions to supplement. That's actually how you make. That's the best way, really, to make money in the game. It's not going to get rich quick, but it's good. And when you can afford it, you can do entirely trades and make a lot of money. But you won't gain reputation in that way. Part 3, Basic Sailing. Okay, once you have loaded up your cargo, of course it's time to set sail. Assuming you aren't extremely tired, hungry, or thirsty, in which case if you're still at the dock and you have enough time, I highly recommend you stay at the inn. It's almost always worth it. I didn't do that actually when I first started playing this game, and I made it much harder than it needed to be. Anyway, I actually stayed at the inn to get my character refreshed, so now all my bars are almost full. They were full when I woke up at the inn, so it's time to get sailing now. It's important to note there is a nice scroll that the game provides you with. The Sailwind Trading Company Sailor's Handbook. I'm not going to read out this all to you, of course. I encourage you to read through it more than once. If you read it carefully, it does give you all the important basics. And it has this extremely important, but for me when I started, for some reason it was confusing to me. I think it was confusing because I was trying to absorb the entirety of the chart all at once, maybe, and it kept frustrating me because I thought I understood the basics of maybe how a sail and a sailboat works, but looking at this I was like, now hang on. But I'll explain it, of course. It goes over the basics of survival as well. So this scroll is excellent, and I'll be referring to that chart to help explain the basics of sailing. And it's important again to note, important to note something else as well. I am not a real sailor. I've never done real sailing in my life. I've never learned anything about real sailing. The only thing I ever knew about sailing when I started playing this game was from movies and video games. And most video games, even games where you are like a pirate, let's say, or things like that, things that are not actual sailing simulators, they typically allow you to do things like sail directly into the wind, but you're just very slow when you do that. Also, typically when you change direction, you get immediate reaction, almost as if it was a vehicle on land, and things like this. Now, Sailwind's not like that. So at first, this game was a little tough. I was actually having trouble. I was struggling. So hopefully this guide will help you. Now, and along with that, that means I'm not necessarily going to use the real sailing terms. If I do, I'll try to actually always use a more generic term to explain this. That's the whole point. A beginner's guide for non-sailors. Now, as you can see, I disconnected the 2 ropes that were connected. Your ship will be pointing the same direction when you start, roughly northeast, and which means that you'll be pointing pretty much toward Gold Rock City. This big, enormous bit here and that bit, and a little bit in the middle. That's all Gold Rock City. You'll just be on the other side of the dock. Now, that means you'll hopefully be moving forward as soon as you lower your sail. It was already lowered when I got in the ship, so yours will be like this when it's up. You raise it with S and lower it with W after you've interacted with this. So you can left click to start interacting, or of course you can use F like everything else. So you press F on this halyard winch. This raises and lowers the sail. So it's called a halyard winch, but as far as for non-sailors, the way I think of it, this is your speed or potential speed. If your sail's all the way down, except with junk sails, you actually raise those. But for this ship, if your sail's all the way down, it's fully out. It's fully extended, meaning highest potential speed. But that may not be what speed you actually get, of course, because you also have to adjust the angle or potential angle, and you do that with this over here on the right side, which is the starboard side. The right side is starboard, the left side is port. I usually use left and right. So here on the right, we have the sheet winch. If I press F or I left click to start interacting with that, I can also use W or S to let out more rope with W up to that much, or bring in the rope with S. And if there's tension on, you see it's coming in slowly because it's kind of fighting against the wind that's already in the sail. If you pull it with S all the way in, then that wooden beam at the top of the sail, which I believe is called a spar, will be pretty much straight along with the same direction of that the ship itself is. Meaning that if we look here above, from straight above, that spar, that beam at the top is pretty much straight along with the ship, right? And that's because I've pulled this sheet winch all the way in. So it keeps it straight, essentially. Now, in our sailing guide, now you see we're already moving, right? We may not be moving very fast, though. I'm sure it's not optimal. I'm moving, and currently I'm moving toward Gold Rock City. My destination is actually north to Al-Nalim, which means I really need to turn like a good 90 degrees at least. So I'm going to turn left before I try to adjust my sail. Be careful if you do this directly into the wind. You may lose momentum. You may not have enough momentum to keep going, but I'll show you in this guide how to fix that. Anyway, I'm going to try to point north. And then I'm going to look at the angle of the sail. I'm going to look at also the handbook. Because that's also what you should do as you're trying to learn how to sail in this game. So, the game starts you out with a map, a handbook, a lantern, a cup, a nice barrel of water. Yours will be full. A nice big crate of goat cheese, and yours will have 12 pieces of cheese in there. Now, in the handbook, we can look and see that this chart that confused me initially, I would try to explain it in a way that would have helped myself when I was starting out, okay? Now, if we look at this chart, we can see that what it's really trying to show is the potential directions your ship could go, and how that relates relative to the wind, and to tell you what angle your sail should be at. Because the direction of the ship doesn't matter that much for how much speed you get. It's actually the angle of the sail relative to the wind, right? Now, the wind in the middle here shows the wind is pointing down in this example, right? So maybe to make this chart easier to understand, we will visualize the wind, okay? So I'm going to add some wind. Let's say the wind, the wind's coming straight down, and let's say that our ship, we were trying to go in this direction relative to the wind itself. So off to the right of the wind, essentially, of pointing directly into the wind. Because, of course, as this chart explains, we cannot sail anywhere within this region. Some ships will be able to go closer to sailing directly into the wind than others. And most ships are pretty slow when you're sailing but somewhat toward directly into the wind. But you can never, in any type of ship, you could never sail directly into the wind. But if we were trying to sail just to the right of that, right, the wind would be coming there from this direction. It would hit the sail, ideally, about like this. And that will translate into forward momentum. We'll be able to go that direction. Now, if we wanted to be going this direction, we want a similar angle for the wind, although now the wind is hitting it more like a 45 degree. And when we're doing that, the wind will be actually blowing, directly to the side of the ship. But the sail will be more at a 45 degree angle, so it will deflect off the sail and push us forward. If we want to go this kind of direction, where the wind is like behind us but not directly behind, the wind is going to be coming to our sail and hitting it almost kind of straight on, right? And then deflecting off of it. And if you are, for instance, in a ship with a square sail, that sail definitely needs to have the wind pretty much behind you, hitting the back of the sail. But luckily, this ship that you start with in the easy region is excellent because it's more forgiving in a way. You could get a little bit closer to sailing into the wind than you can with other ships. So you have more angles of potential sailing. Hopefully that makes sense. In simplest terms, if we use the external camera, I can show this especially. The angle of the wind, generally speaking, should cross that beam above the sail at roughly a 45 degree angle. Right now, it's definitely not doing that, right? So we can improve that. So this flag here also shows you the direction of the wind. If I point myself to where I'm pretty much pointing like the wind is, and I imagine myself, so I am the wind, I'm facing the sail. I'm not hitting at a 45, I'm hitting at a weird, almost 90 degree, right? So therefore, I should be able to let out this sheet winch by pressing F and then pressing W and holding it down for a bit. And now, if I'm the wind, right, and I'm going that direction, yeah, I'm hitting the sail much more at a 45 degree. And we can look from above, and it also looks like a good angle. You see? The wind is coming directly at me. The way it's hitting the sail is a nice angle. Perhaps I could even bring it back in a bit. Press F and then press S to bring it in. When in doubt, check your sailing manual for the third page. And this feature of my recording software, this is not a feature of the game, but try to visualize the wind, not with this just one little tiny arrow here, but think about it's on the whole. Think about how that translates for each of these potential directions. Again, this does mean that you can never travel directly into the wind. And therefore, instead, if you had to get there, let's say your ship needs to do this particular direction relative to the wind because your destination is up there. Let's say your destination is up here. Then you will alternate sailing this direction and then this direction and then this direction I could draw that better. You see, and then eventually you're going to get to your destination. You'll never be sailing directly into the wind. Well, you will each time you turn, but you have enough momentum hopefully to make it through the turn. But you'll be doing this kind of direction for a while, and then this kind of direction for a while, and alternate until you get to your destination. Hopefully that makes sense. But the main thing is, read this manual for your basic sailing techniques. It explains basically what I've just explained. I think the only thing it doesn't tell you that's kind of important is if you do try to sail directly into the wind, and I'll show you that later in this guide, how to get out of that at least. Like if I turned until I was facing directly into the wind, and then I held that position for too long, I actually would be going backwards, likely. The wind would be pushing me back. So beware of that. If you turn your wheel to the left, but instead of going left, you go to the right, well, you're currently going backwards. Or if you turn your wheel to the right, but for some reason you go to the left, you're currently going backwards. And I'll show you how to fix that later on. So sailing is basically all about the angle of your sail relative to the wind, avoiding never sailing directly into the wind, and if you want to reduce your speed, which is important when you're getting close to your destination, and you don't want to come into the docks really, really fast, or if it's getting very windy, very stormy, and the winds are tipping your boat too far, you can press F on this halyard winch, hold S to bring it up, maybe halfway, maybe 2/3, and you'll go slower, because you're allowing less sail to actually catch the wind. This is also very important to do before you sleep in your ship, unless you are anchored or at the docks, because you will continue to sail while you're sleeping, which means you might end up on a beach, or you might crash into a cliff. Although right now there's no damage modeling, so your ship shouldn't break apart, or you may overshoot and get lost. Very, very common things that new players run into. So make sure you raise the sail either all the way or most of the way. And if you really want to play it safe, you can go to the front of your ship, press F on the anchor, and hold W until it hits the bottom. But that will only happen in shallow waters. If you go out into the open ocean, like I'm probably in shallow waters in this whole region, but if you're in the open ocean, the anchor won't work. So you would raise your sail as much as you can, and then you could sleep safely. But these are the basics of sailing. And like I say, most of this is basically explained in the handbook. One more time, I'll just say that this halyard winch is basically your speed, and this sheet winch is the sail's potential angle. The actual angle will depend on how the wind grabs it, but that's basically your angle. So sheet winch is your angle, halyard winch is your speed. One more thing with sailing, actually, I don't know, I didn't mention before. When you press F to interact with the wheel or the helm and turn left or turn right, wherever you turn, as long as you don't press anything, you're still holding the wheel. And I'm holding, like for instance, now I've turned it all the way to the left, and I was continuing to hold it. If I press F, I'll let go of the wheel, and then it will just slowly return to a neutral position. It should, at least. If I press F to interact again, turn it all the way to the right, press F to let go, it's now going to slowly drift back to the neutral position. If you have your sails trimmed properly and you're pointed in the proper direction, then when the wheel returns to neutral, you should pretty much hold the same heading. Now that's assuming that there's not storms and waves that are turning you about and twisting you around, but other than that, if you have your sails trimmed properly, you shouldn't have to constantly change your heading. You should be able to find your heading and keep it there. Also, I didn't show before, normally the compass starts on the table. When you pick it up, you can either hold it to use it like that. You can set it down on something like a table, a crate, or a barrel and use it like that. Or you can pick it up, and what I like to do is press tab to open the inventory when you're holding it, left click on the center slot, and it will put it in your inventory, and the compass works even when it's in your inventory. And again, my destination is north, and yours, if you took Al Nalim, yours also will be. So I've just got to make it to Al Nalim. Part 3. Getting unstuck. So a common result for new players, and it may happen, most likely it's happened when you're sleeping and your ship kept sailing, or if you just weren't paying attention how close you were to land, this may happen. And that is running aground and getting stuck that way. And right now the wind is almost behind me, basically. So anyway, I had a lot of speed. I tried to build up a bunch of speed and then run this thing aground to demonstrate. So whether you run aground on a sandbar, or you run aground on a beach, or maybe you've gotten it stuck so close to the dock and you run aground, you know, near the dock or whatever, this is one of the ways that you can get stuck in Sailwind, and it can be quite frustrating. First of all, it's important to mention, no matter how you may get stuck, or no matter how things may go, even if your ship is sunk to the bottom of the ocean, you can always press escape, and at the bottom left you can click recover boat. The big blue button, recover boat here. Now that is a last resort, but you have it there, and now it's fairly generous as well. It'll put you back at port, maybe not the nearest port, but a local port, and also actually your energy bar, your thirst bar, and your hunger bar will all be refilled completely. So it's as if you stayed at the inn. I think it may actually deduct the cost of staying at the inn, but it's worth it. You'll be rested, you'll be back in your ship, you'll be back at a port. You just may not be where you wanted to go. But that is a last resort. So if you don't want to do that, but you're stuck, run aground, of course, I could raise the sail so that I'm not at full speed. But that might not be enough. And then I could be frantically trying to turn the angle of this, you know, if I'm a new player and I've forgotten, or maybe I'm not aware of the recover boat option and how generous it actually is. It's not that bad. Or I'm just really don't want to have to do that. Right? What do you do? Well, it's also what you can do at dock. You can shove off from the dock, essentially. You can even shove your boat while you're out at sea, mercifully, because sometimes you'll have to use that to get unstuck. But in this case, when you run aground and you've gotten stuck, probably the best thing to do is get out of your ship. And like I say, maybe stow the sail like I did, but get out of your ship, get near it, and you'll see it says F for push, or left mouse button. If you're not in your ship, you can be behind it, you can be beside it, whatever. But if you're not in your ship, you can push it with F. It'll push in the direction you're looking. So if I want to push this thing away from the beach, I just need to kind of look in the direction it's away from the beach and tap F a bunch. And you see that worked somewhat. It's not working entirely, so maybe I'll change my angle a bit. Look maybe more this way. And I may have beached it so far that this won't work either, in which case recover boat will be my only option. No, I think it's moving a little bit. I just need to shove it. There we go. Shove the back of it toward the ocean. There we go. I'm getting somewhere. Oh, it's... Now, what's happening, interestingly, is even though the sail is stowed, the wind is still pushing against the side of the ship and the sail, and that actually does influence your direction somewhat. So I may have to push it backwards like this to try to counter and spam it a bunch to try to counter the wind. If I can get this, it may not be possible, but if I can do that, that's your option other than recover boat. But if I can get it to an angle that's at least somewhat favorable for the wind, I can then maybe lower the sail and get moving again. I really should be pushing it directly away from... There we go. See? That's the best. There you go. Directly away from the beach. And in this case, directly backwards was the ticket. There we go. Now, I can stay in the water, and I still get that advantage of pushing it. Now, it should be noted when you're at the docks, you can push against the dock even if you're in your ship. And whether you're pushing against the dock from inside your ship or pushing your ship while standing on the dock, you'll get even more of a boost than you will if you're in the water like this. And see, I can still push it. It's slowing it down. It's wanting to go backward. Now, I can then lower my sail. Hopefully, I'm kind of pointed. I'm going to be pointed directly into the wind, kind of. Now, actually, it's changed somewhat. Yeah, it was more from the side or from behind before, but I can hopefully get enough momentum, turn into the wind, because that's the only option I have. Otherwise, I'm going into the beach. I'm going to keep turning to the right. This will only work if your sheet winch is pulled all the way in. Now I've crossed over from going directly into the wind. I'm continuing to turn to the right, and now I'm getting to a possible sailing angle. Not directly into the wind. That would be the direction I'm facing, pretty much, right? Let's see. You can tell with the flag. Sort of, yeah. And then, so it's not that direction, but it's to the right of that enough so that I'm getting forward momentum. And we can tell by these posts here that warn of a sandbar below the water, a obstacle. We can tell by those and by the dock and everything else that we are moving forward again. And we are free, and I did not have to recover boat. Now, there are two other ways you can get stuck. And so I'll demonstrate those. Now, first of all, you can get stuck trying to go directly into the wind for too long. So let's go ahead and do that. So I've got my sheet winch pulled all the way in. I'm trying to turn from going to the right of directly into the wind to more so to the left of going directly into the wind. But now I've stuck myself directly into the wind, because the wind, you see, is, well, it's not direct, but it's almost. So that now I'm not really going anywhere. In fact, if I sit here for too long, I'll probably be going backwards. And if you listen to the sail, and if you look at it too, you can kind of tell. It's just, well, now it's not as much, but it's flopping back and forth. It sounds like a flag, and it's not really translating into forward momentum. At this point, I'm probably going backwards. So, how do you get out of this? Well, you could get out of the ship and push it. You could recover boat. I guess that's crazy. Nobody would do that. Or, you could steer to the left or the right. Let's go to the left and see if we go to the left. Instead of going left, I am very gently going to the right. This means I am going backwards. And just like in a car, if I steer to the left, it's actually going to go to the right. Now, I'm going to hold it to the left until maybe I'll get enough wind, and the sail can grab just enough wind. There, you see it's moving? Then I can quickly turn to the right, because maybe now I'm going forward, and see if it actually turns to the right. And it is. Also should be noted, this is rather easy to do, I've found, in this ship with this triangular sail. But with other ships, it definitely may not be as easy, may not even be possible. Now, I'm going to continue to turn to the right, really. I should try to get at a better angle and then let it build up some speed. And then I'd be able to make the turn again if I needed to. And hopefully we'll be able to go directly into the wind for a little bit and then have enough momentum to keep turning. But you see, I had to actually reverse it first. It was taking me backwards. This is important because, it's important to remember that, because as a new player, there were several times where I wasn't getting anywhere, and I didn't realize I kept trying to sail too close to sailing into the wind, and kept going backwards a lot, and then trying to recover, and then going backwards. Of course, you'll never get there if you do that. So that's how you get unstuck. Now, again, if there's one other way, let's turn into the wind one more time. And then straighten it out. Let's try to get it like really directly into the wind. Yeah. Oh yeah. So I'm really directly into the wind. I'm gonna let go of the wheel and just let it do its thing. I'll probably end up starting to go backwards and all that. So like I said before, this is actually the easiest way actually to recover this is not to try to go backwards until you can go forward again. In reality, the best way is to just get out of the ship. And you can hold spacebar or just press spacebar until you're at the surface, and then you'll stay at the surface. You don't have to constantly hold spacebar. And then look at your ship from one side to the other. And again, it'll try to push it in the direction you're looking. So I'm actually going to look this direction to try to kind of push it away and turn it a bit, hopefully. If I keep doing that, or actually, maybe even better, push from the back of it and spam that F key. Boom, boom, boom. See, I'm pushing myself and I'm getting momentum forward. I know I'm going forward. I can quickly press F when I'm looking at the ladder on either side of the ship to get back inside it, and then turn either to the right or the left while I've got forward momentum until the front of the ship is pointed at a desirable angle that can actually catch some wind. And once again, this whole time I've had the sheet winch pulled all the way in. If I had it out with W, it may have flopped around a lot more and the sail, and it may not have actually worked. So anyway, that's how you can recover from that. Finally, I'd like to demonstrate one more way that you may get stuck as a new player. This also happened to me. Let's say you've unconnected the ropes, you're ready to set off, you lowered the sail. I'm going to actually turn toward the dock to demonstrate it even more. But you're just pushing against the dock and not going anywhere. In this case, I'm actually going, but the winds are favorable enough. But let's say it didn't. It just kept grinding against the dock, and you just didn't seem to be able to go anywhere. Well, wouldn't you know it, once again, one of the best ways is to push the ship. But in the dock, or when the dock is nearby, as you see, I can look at it and press F. Alright, here we go. See, I stopped moving. I'm kind of stuck on the dock. In this case, it looks like it will eventually scrape its way free, or maybe it won't. Of course, you could change your sail configuration. You could try to fix this, and you may be able to get going if the wind and the sail angle are correct. Yeah, it's going to get itself free. But if it didn't, you could either stay in the ship and look at the dock if you're close enough to the dock, and spam that F key to push away from the dock and get some speed. It should push you in the opposite direction that you're looking. And that grinding sound was the back of the ship grinding against the dock. But if you can't press the dock for whatever reason, you could get out and press F on your ship. In this case, I think I'm actually going to make it go aground if I do this. I think I did, yeah. So let's see if we can get that free. It's a good test for getting free. And like I said before, if you have to, as a last resort, you can press escape and press the blue button at the bottom left for cover boat. It may set you back a day or two, depending on where you are and where you end up, but at least you won't be hungry, you won't be thirsty, you won't be tired, and you can try again. There we go. That kind of worked. Until it worked, but then the rear of the ship is now run aground. It looks pretty easy, though. I think if I push from the back of the ship. And be careful when you're pressing against the ship with F. Don't get too close to the ship, or you're likely to accidentally pick up some of your cargo, and then you may have trouble getting it back on the ship. It may fall in the ocean. It'll float, but you don't want to have to deal with that. Anyway, so that's how you get unstuck. Most of the time, the best solution is to get out and push it a little bit until you get a better angle or better situation. I've really gotten it jammed in here, though. Oh, I could raise the sail, and that certainly would help. Anyway. There we go. Ooh. Raising the sail and then shoving it did the trick. Pretty much, except I'm on another beach. Hang on. One more time. And... well, you get the idea anyway. There we go. Get behind it. Yeah. Really get it going forward. Boom. Stuck again. One more time. One last time, and it should be... there it goes. There goes my ship. Actually, this is a perfect time to mention that if you fall out of your ship, it doesn't really matter how far away it gets, as long as you don't lose track of which direction it went. You should be able to get there just holding down W. And if that doesn't do the trick, W and shift to sprint and swim till you're on either side of the ship, and press F when you see one of the ladders. There's one on the left and one on the right. Part 4. Hunger, Thirst, and Sleep. Sailwind does have survival elements. And as a new player, at least for me, they can actually seem pretty punishing. I actually felt like that the default settings were, and you can't change them actually for the survival part, I've always felt were kind of hard or very hard, potentially. It always seems like I'm always thirsty, I'm always hungry, I'm always sleepy. But you can offset that quite a bit by sleeping at inns pretty often. I do that now. So that, first of all, if you're very thirsty, very hungry, very sleepy, and you're anywhere near a dock, and most docks, most places have an inn, it's almost always worth it to go ahead and stay at the inn. But for now, I'm not at the inn yet. And even let's say I weren't, and yeah, as you can see, maybe the screen is kind of fuzzy because I'm so thirsty. So I'm gonna pick up my mug with F and then press F while looking at the barrel of water to fill it up, and then hold down R and drink some water. And that's enough for now. I'm not refilled completely, but at least it gave me about a third of a bar. So when you press tab to bring up your inventory, and also when you get really thirsty or hungry, it'll flash at the bottom and show you these bars. You can see that there are 3 bars, and the top one is your energy, which shows a little crescent moon. The second one is your thirst, which shows a little mug. And the third one is your hunger, which in this case shows a wheel of cheese. Obviously, you do not want these bars to run out, but once they get very low, you'll still have some time, typically. But obviously, if you run out of entirely of any of those bars, you will basically pass out. If you're at a dock, it won't be a big deal, but you'll pass out, and that could be a problem. Now, in this case, I'm back at Neverden, or I will be in a moment. And so I can stay at the inn, and it'll only cost me about 16 coins. It may seem like a lot, but it's absolutely worth it. Or I could eat some of this food that they start you out with. I can press R to bring this up to open it, and then I can left click on one of these wheels of cheese, and then I can press R to close that, and hold down R to eat. So now I'm not hungry. I'm a little bit thirsty, you could say, maybe, but not that much. But I'm still very tired. Now, since I'm at the dock, if I wanted to sleep for free, I could sleep in my hammock. The problem is, I'll then probably be thirsty and hungry again. And I don't want to eat through all of my rations, right? You should think about the rations, in my opinion, of water and food on your ship as stuff you should eat when you're not near the docks, when you're not at port. And whenever you're actually at port, you would almost surely should stay at the inn. So that's what I'm going to do now. But if you did want to sleep in your ship, or if that was your only choice, if you're out at sea, you should raise the sail either all the way up, or at least 2/3 of the way, so that you're only going very slow. And then to the rear of your ship, on this particular ship, you can approach the hammock and then press F. You will not be able to control when you wake up, but when you do wake up, you can press F to immediately get out of the hammock, or you can wait, and if you're still tired, you'll continue to sleep. However, if you're hungry or thirsty, you may not be able to sleep very long at all, if at all. So if you're constantly waking up and you see your thirst bars flashing or something, you may be too thirsty to sleep. So that's another great thing about the inn. No matter how sleepy, no matter how thirsty, no matter how hungry, it's like an all-you-can-eat buffet, all-you-can-drink the water, and you get to sleep it off, and you'll be fully restored the next day. One more thing to mention, too. In the newest update, there is now the possibility of food rotting, and there's food preservation techniques. There's also nutrition needs. I feel this may have scared some of the new players, but the great news is you can actually ignore the nutrition needs entirely as long as you stay at an inn every now and then, and you really should do that, as I've demonstrated. And this food preservation you can also ignore unless you are planning to take a long journey like crossing the ocean, and you'll probably need to play this game 50 or 60 hours before you can even afford a ship that's even really capable of doing that, let alone the knowledge and the navigational instruments to make it there. Because otherwise you can just fish for your food when you're hungry if you have a fishing pole, and then what you catch will last about 1 day, so just don't fish for too much. Only fish for what you need for the next day. You can supplement your food every so often. You can buy individual food, although they're not selling it yet because I guess it's too late at night. But the markets and obviously the inns will sell you individual food and water as well, and food and drink and all that. But I'm going to stay at the inn here. It's 17 lions, but it's totally worth it. I just left click on that sign there where it says rest until morning. There we go. Now actually you can see what they sell here. Just some basic water in case you ran out completely. Some wine, some cheese, some dates. And I don't need any of that now because I stayed at the inn. So now everything is absolutely at maximum. Absolutely fully rested. Absolutely not thirsty in the slightest. Not hungry in the slightest. This will save you. Actually, it might even save you money in the long run. But it may cost slightly more money. But you got to think about this. The game starts you with a crate of goat cheese. It has 12 wheels of cheese. Mine's already down to like 9 or whatever. This crate of cheese, it can easily cost you 80 to 100 coins of Al-Ankh lions. That's a lot, and you have to buy water. Well, unless you stay at inns and you somehow never stay gone long enough. But I haven't even drank that much of my water, and I haven't eaten that much of my food, even though I've played this particular save for quite a while. And it's because I've been staying at the inns. So once again, food preservation, it exists. If you want to learn about that, you can buy a scroll at the capital cities. But you don't need to do that really unless you're going to either stockpile a bunch of food or you're going for a long journey. Because if you buy a crate of cheese, it's sealed until you open it. And until you break the seal, it doesn't start to go bad. So even if you buy a couple of crates of food, if you're only eating out of one of them, the other one's just waiting. So it's really not that bad, like I say, until you go on a longer journey. Now, your starting scroll has a little bit about survival on page 4. It explains a little bit about what I just mentioned. So food, water, restfulness. It seems pretty tough in this game in the beginning, but if you stay at inns as often as you can, it's really way, way better. But you can also, you can fish for your own food. There's lots of different ways you can sustain yourself in this game. And when it comes to nutrition, all you got to worry about is to eat a variety of food or stay at an inn every now and then. Because when you stay at an inn, it's assumed that you're eating a wide variety of food, so your nutrition needs are all fine. Now, if your nutrition icon is no longer cheese, it's something else. Like it could be an orange slice. It could be... well, I'm not sure what the other one is. I can't remember. Maybe meat or something. Then it might show that whatever it's showing, you should try to eat that so that you can get your nutrition back in check. If it shows a wheel of cheese or that slice of cheese, as it does now, that means your nutrition is already in check, in balance, and you can eat whatever you want. So there we go. Part 5. The starting region. Okay, and here in this last section of the guide, I'm just going to cover some useful information about the starting region of Al-Ankh. So the game starts you out with the map, and a common practice would be to grab the map and then press tab, and you can place it in any of your inventory slots. Then whenever you need to refer to the map, no matter where you are, you can pull it out. Then you press tab and place it back in. So this is the Al-Ankh region. There are at least 3 regions in the game. Each region has their own currency and their own theme and feel. The easy region is easy mostly because, well, partly because the ship is much easier to learn and is a little bit more versatile, although it's small, which all of the starting ships are small, really. But it's easy to learn. And And the winds here and the weather are relatively calm compared to the other regions. You will definitely encounter storms. They do happen. They're just not nearly as common here. And also, the winds don't change as often here. So let me show you the prevailing winds in the Al-Ankh region, which just means the most likely winds that you will see, not necessarily the actual winds. It's not exactly northeast, which would be like this. It's more like this. Now remember, again, the winds could be anything. They could be any direction. But more than half the time, in this region, they'll probably look something like that. And like I say, they could be anything. It could be directly against you. But generally speaking, it's going to be something. So you can assume it's kind of like northeasterly. Now this affects what kind of routes you do in this region. And a common mistake or a common problem you may run into as a new player is that I'm currently in Al Nalim, but you'll begin actually in Neverdin down here in the bottom left. And as I mentioned before in this series, in this guide, you can go to Al Nalim, which I highly recommend for your first destination, or Gold Rock City, which isn't quite as good, but is awesome for your first destination. So, in this case, I went to Al Nalim, but if you had gone to Gold Rock City, and then you decided to do the return trip, well, if you kind of look at the prevailing winds, you're not exactly against the wind, but you're kind of close to it. So if the winds were varied at the time and they were a little bit more to the east instead of northeast, they would be directly against you. You see? So just keep that in mind in this region, that the winds are oftentimes coming from the southwest and going toward the northeast. If there's a storm, though, you don't have to even be in the storm. You don't even have to be that close to the storm for the winds to change. So winds will create unpredictable waves and unpredictable winds. But like I say, in this region, the storms are not as common. Another great thing about this region is the Gold Rock City is so incredibly huge compared to the other islands that you should almost always see it unless you get really far out, like outside of this region, basically. So it is your navigational aid. You can always take your compass out and point yourself at Gold Rock City and get a general idea where you are. Just a very rough idea if you have no other landmarks. But if you can try to get an idea how far away Gold Rock is and what direction it is, at least you have some idea of where you are. So it's a landmark that you should pretty much always have in this region. As long as you don't get too far out. Now, for example, here where I'm at Al Nalim, like I say, you start at Neverdin, but I'm actually at Al Nalim. I can see, it's kind of hard to see because that hill is in the way a bit. But that direction there, which is almost east, it's kind of between east and southeast, is Gold Rock City. And there's an island that direction, which is pretty much southeast, which I actually know to be an uninhabited island, because not all of them are inhabited. So in this region, of course, Gold Rock City has the most people, and most of the other places have people. I'll go ahead and highlight the ones that do. The ones that are remaining would be Isle of Clear Mind and Lion's Fang. Those are just uninhabited islands that are great for navigational reference. Which means if you do take your first trip to Al Nalim from Neverdin, to your right, you should pretty much be able to see Isle of Clear Mind the whole time. Not directly to your right until you're about halfway, but now Gold Rock City is a very important place. There's more options at the market there than any other place. And actually water's not too bad of a price there either. It's a good price. So there's a great variety of things. Water is fairly good price. But the prices of everything else may be a little bit higher than other places because, you know, it's the city. But it has a great variety. So it's an excellent place to resupply, to get your water, to either buy some food, or if you're ready to do fishing, you know, get a fishing rod and fishing hooks and some firewood. Or you could even get a grill to start, you know, fishing and grilling with it. And you'll also find instructional things there. There's an instructional scroll for navigation using the more advanced navigational instruments. You'll also be able to buy a scroll that teaches you about food preservation, like salting and smoking food and all of this stuff. So Gold Rock's a great place to resupply and to go shopping. The other destinations, vary as far as what things they have, and most of them are pretty easy to get into, or to get to and to get into the port. So that is it for this guide. I hope it helps new players get started with Sailwind, because it can be a little bit frustrating at first, but I've found that once you get the hang of it, it can be incredibly immersive and extremely addictive. Alright folks, hope that you enjoyed that. This has been Mr. Axebane with a beginner's guide for non-sailors to the game of Sailwind. Take care and happy sailing.